Thank you so much for being here. Welcome, Anupama.
I'm so excited to be here. This is my first time at the Kerala Literature Festival, and I'm just stunned by what this is. It's incredible. Look at the people, look at the spaces.
Yeah,
Fabulous.
that's right. Especially Kozhikode is a city that loves food, cinema, culture. It's an amazing place to host a festival like this. So, welcome to Kozhikode also. I'll start by asking you about your book. We'll get the book. We want you to go to the bookshop and pick up the copy. It has an amazing collection of interviews Anupama has done over a decade or more than that. To start with, most of these interviews are available on YouTube and we've watched it. How did this idea of putting it all together into a book come about?
So it was actually, and I'm so grateful that Bloomsbury Publishing thought that this was worthy. But I can't remember if I suggested it or they suggested it, but we decided that maybe there is value enough in these interviews to put them together. And I think the value, and you're right, they are available on YouTube, but the value is in seeing so many different artists alongside each other, right? So there is Shah Rukh Khan and Priyanka Chopra and Deepika and Ritik, but also Fahad Fasil and also Lal Sir and also Diljit Dosanjh. And when you see that spectrum of incredible artists and you read them talking about their lives and their art and their vulnerabilities, I think it's very different from watching. So the book, for me, the value is it has archival value. It captures a time uh, in the history of Indian cinema. I love that it's not just Hindi cinema, and I think it also captures how artists think and feel and how they respond to a very changing landscape.
That's what I was thinking. We understand movies through reviews or reviewers like you. So as much as the art of cinema is important, when you read these or listen to these conversations, that is also like an cultural archive of Indian cinema. And as you said, you see the stars stepping out of their scripted role, their insecurities, their flaws, and their ambitions. Everything comes out in those interviews. So when you held the book, and maybe I'm sure you flipped through these interviews, is there any particular interview that stood out for you?
See, that wouldn't be fair. there's because there's 40 plus, almost 50 interviews in the book. Um, but I have great memories of, it's like you go away taking away something and learning something. Um, like when I interviewed Fahad, it was so amazing to me how he's not a physically imposing man, right? He's not big in like physically, and yet he can summon such menace on screen, right? When he's Shammi in Kumbalangi Nights, you're terrified, right? When he's that cop in Pushpa, he's really frightening, and you don't understand the menace he brings to those characters. Uh, and when I met him in life, he's just this, you know, lovely man wearing these sandals and so simply dressed, um, and so non-starry. That's what I remember from that interview. He just came in, I think, with one person, um, did that interview, walked out. Like two or three people asked him for pictures. Like no entourage, no performance of being a star, nothing like that. So those are the memories I have of many of these interviews.
Okay, I'm sure that's very different from most of the Bollywood stars that you've interviewed. But I want you to tell the Fafa story to the audience if they haven't heard about it already, because I thought that is one of the most fascinating stories. That also tell us how, not just about Fahad Fasil, but what Malayalam cinema has become. Can you please tell the story for all of us?
So essentially, the Fafa story is this: that I was putting together a year-end roundtable, which we do every year, And this was for Film Companion, not for the Hollywood Reporter India. But, I was talking to a A-list Bollywood star, and, he had confirmed that he would be at the round table. And of course, I was also chasing Fahad, but chasing Fahad is like chasing the wind. Um, Sometimes he will be present, and most times he will be absent, right? And so you can never really pin him down. Um, so he didn't, it didn't materialize. I couldn't get him to the round table. And literally a few days before that shoot, the A-list Bollywood star canceled. No. So this A-list Bollywood star canceled saying, I'm not coming. And I was like, how can you not come? Like, this is important. And he said, I thought you were putting me in a room with Fahad Fasil. And if he's not in the room, I'm not coming. And he didn't come.
That is Fahad Fasil for you. But when you talk about Bollywood, see, I'm not somebody from a Bollywood background, but everybody is so fascinated by Bollywood. Everyone. And everybody that I've met, they will have one Bollywood story to tell, especially if you are Indians from different states all together on a dining table. What connects you is if you have one Bollywood story. So whenever I travel, like there's one Bollywood story, like my big Bollywood story that I tell people is when I travel to northeast Syria and I'm interviewing Kurdish women fighters. These are battle-hardened women fighters who have fought
And I
ISIS.
guess Shah Rukh Khan.
Shah Rukh Khan. And the moment
I
I
knew
said
it.
I'm from India, they were like, they wanted to ask about Shah Rukh Khan and Ranbir Kapoor and Kareena Kapoor. And these women, their whole life is dedicated to their homeland. They don't fall in love, they don't get married. The only mission is to defend the homeland. The moment you drop the name Shah Rukh Khan, they go weak on their knees. So I want you to tell me what is the Bollywood story that you would tell an international audience, or maybe somebody who's living under the rock.
Well, I guess it has to be a Shah Rukh story only, right? Because I have written a book on Shah Rukh. I have interviewed Shah Rukh for more than 20 years. I first met him on the sets of Ram Jane, which I think was 1997. And he was wearing this purple suit, which was really, really not attractive. But
Shah Rukh Khan can pull it off.
absolutely. I think one of my favorite Shah Rukh stories is back in the day, and I'm talking about 15 years ago, it was much easier to have access, right? So you could text an actor, you could just get an interview. And I remember doing an interview with him while he was walking down Oxford Street in London. He had just had a neck or a spinal surgery, and I was talking to him. I used to work for India Today, so maybe it was even more than 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago. Um, and we were doing this interview, and he was telling me about these, I don't know what it was, like metal plates that have been put in. And then suddenly he stopped. He said, okay, I can't talk more. I'm being mobbed. And we have the book, guys.
The book. So this is the book that we have. It's a collection of some of the best Bollywood interviews, and then you may want to pick up a copy.
So that's one of my favorite ones. And the other one is exactly like yours, Anjana. I was at the Marrakesh Film Festival, and there was a guy fixing my hair. And the minute I said, I'm from India, he started to sing a song from, of course, a Shah Rukh movie because they love him.
That's right. Yeah, so I think Bollywood is also, something that makes we Indians, when we travel abroad, that's what bring people together. And we're so proud of Bollywood. But, another question that I want to ask you is, you're one of those few people who've had a ringside view, an inside view of Bollywood, because you've interviewed all the big stars, producers, all of that. How has your relationship with Bollywood evolved over the years?
It's tricky because, of course, there is a great, what's the right word? Because it's not comfort, it's not, we're not friends. I'm a film critic, I can't be friends. Uh, but there is a sense that that's home, right? Of course, I'm married to the mob as well. So, you know, in a sense, it's like and they always say like the Hindi film industry is like this extended family, a very dysfunctional extended family, but it is a family. Uh, so I do feel like I'm in some way a part of it. Um, but the relationship keeps evolving depending on whether I've liked or disliked your movie. So when I've given it a critical review, then they don't want to talk to me.
Okay.
But when I've loved something, which is, you know, something that I want to do, I go into a movie wanting to love a movie, then they're very happy. So it evolves from Friday to Friday.
All right. So it's mercurial. But that brings me to another question, especially Bollywood. I know you're doing a lot more interviews outside of Bollywood also, but specifically about Bollywood, it's a very star-driven industry, right? So how? So I think your work, I'm imagining, is also a balance. Is it a balance between being honest, but also access matters a lot for these interviews and such. So how do you make that balance?
So, in an ideal world, a film critic should not also be a film um, journalist or be interviewing actors, right? In an ideal world. In the US, there's a lot of critics who are pure critics. We have a few, like Rahul Desai, who writes for the Hollywood Reporter India, does not do interviews because he thinks that will in some way color his review because you're sitting opposite an actor. So I that would be amazing, but we've never had that luxury. And I started out as a film journalist and became a film critic. So for me, it's the criticism, the reviewing came later. And look, you've got to be honest because if you're not honest, don't do it. For me, I'm very real about that. I don't think that you become a film critic because you want to make friends or you want to be popular. You can't. Um, I feel if you're in a space where you cannot be honest and come to that review with integrity, then don't do it. Uh, do you piss off people? Yes. You make people very angry. They stop talking to you. If you really piss them off, then they troll you. And then you become a national conversation. Uh, but it's part of the job. What are you going to do? So you maintain relationships. And honestly, a lot of people are fairly evolved, like Ritik Roshan. I was not the biggest fan of Fighter, but he did an interview with me right after that review, and I said to him that I'm amazed that you're giving me time, and he said, "No, my love language is honesty. It's not like you have to love everything I do. If you're honest about what I do, I appreciate that more." So there are people like that as well, but mostly, and I always critique with respect. I'm not trying to be dismissive or um, insulting. I never want to do that.
Yeah, I think the Hrithik Roshan example could be a rarity, I'm sure. But this complexity that you explain, and it's not just between the film critic and the stars, because now there is a new brand of movies that are coming out. Bollywood is, let me use the word churning out, so nationalistic, so patriotic driven. There's an agenda behind that. So maybe a critic may see that movie and give an honest review, but maybe that movie would be embraced by the public because that is the national mood in our country. So how would you deal with that kind of, you have not trashed a movie, but you have reviewed a movie quite negatively, but it is a mass success.
But that
That can
happens all
happen,
the
right?
time. That happens all the time. I mean, there's so many, and the sad thing is that people actually think that, and I've had distributors say this to me that you didn't like a film, up to it's a hit. So, the truth is, I'm not here to tell you uh, if a film will run or not. That's not my job. My job is only to give you my informed opinion about how I felt about a film and make a case for how I felt about a film. You don't have to agree with me. What I want to bring to your viewing is maybe point out three things that you didn't see otherwise. But we're not here to agree. You know, it's not like I have to, I'm not the voice of the public. I'm, I'm what stands between you all and the film marketing, right? I'm the first one tasting the food before you taste it and saying, look, I like this, I didn't like this. But of course, movies are very, very subjective. It's not, what I'm saying is an opinion, it's not a fact. So it's not that it's going to be true or false. So it happens all the time and it's part of my job. Like, I remember there was a Hindi film which I really didn't like called Grand Masti. Okay. And of course, it was one of those very risque comedies. Um I didn't find it funny at all. I'm not a prude. I'm all for risque comedies, but this one just didn't strike me as being witty. And so I gave my review. And then back then, I used to work for Star World, and they would do a vox pop. You know, they would ask people coming out of theaters.
That's right.
And the people coming out of theaters just loved it. And they're like, "Kya picture banai hai?" So I I was really like the scolding auntie saying, "Gandi hai, yeah, wo hai," and then cut to the public who's just loving it. That's my life.
That's right. You know, you like salad for breakfast. I like idli and chutney. So that's the difference, maybe. Yeah. But you know, when you talk about the movie criticism, see, we had an idea of understanding a movie or movie criticism through people like Anupama Chopra, because you're professional movie critics. But now everybody is a movie critic. You have a mobile phone, you watch a movie, you have some sort of interest or an opinion on a movie, it's out there. Has that challenged your role as a professional movie critic, or do you have to adapt in any ways?
Yeah, you have to adapt. Uh, you have to get better. You know, does anybody want to listen to you uh, over their circle of 10 friends, right? Um, I don't even know the person, so why should they listen to me? The only reason might be because I bring um, maybe a wider palette. I've watched a lot more than the average person just because that's my job. Like, I'm literally watching all the time. Uh, Maybe because I come with a slightly more sort of informed sense of where this movie lies in the filmography of this director, of this actor. Uh, but that's really it. So it's on me now to be good enough to get your time, because attention is the new gold, diamond, everything, right? It is the wealth that we're all craving for. We all are craving for each other's attention. And the only reason you should give it to me is if I'm good enough and if I'm adding value to your film going experience. Uh, so the adaptation is just be better.
And another disruptor, like I'm looking at, what are the disruptors in Bollywood and how you have dealt with it. So another disruptor is definitely OTT platforms and, post COVID, how we have started uh, understanding or enjoying cinema. Like I can watch Korean movies, Spanish movies sitting at home, and also somebody in a small town from Odisha can enjoy Kumbalangi Nights and Avesham. So that has broadened the horizon of the viewer. So do you think, has the cinema industry, especially Bollywood, uh, are they catching up with the better understanding and the broad horizon a viewer or an audience has developed?
Absolutely.
They have.
I think streaming has really helped viewers to evolve. Um, and you mentioned Kumbalangi Night, and I always say Kumbalangi Nights was my gateway drug into Malayalam cinema. I fell in love with that film, and yes, and then fell in love with so many other Malayalam films. And I wish to God I could speak the language, because there's so many incredible artists who I can't interview because they're not comfortable speaking in English. So someday. It's such a tough language, though. It really is. Uh, but yes, streaming, I think, has helped us all to see how much amazing storytelling there is beyond your own language, right? So it's not just uh, watching Korean, and we're all watching other films made in India, which we did not before. I mean, I would watch a Malayalam film at a festival, right? But I would not um, go into a theater. And, back, I'm talking about 10, 15 years ago, it was very rare to have like a film showing at a theater with English subtitles. So it was just not part of our regular diet of storytelling. And now it is. I'm always watching, always not just on streaming, but now I'm in theaters watching whatever the new movie is. Um, I'm going on Monday to see, and I don't know how to say this, Chata
Chatapacha.
Tatapacha. That's right. So I feel like streaming is the one amazing change and disruption that's happened, and it's educated us all.
The last few years, I've seen your shows and, how you have spoken about Malayalam cinema. She's always lauding praise after praise on Malayalam cinema. So thank you for that. Because, you have such a wide audience across India who look at you to understand Indian cinema. So that's great for us Malayalis. But tell us, what does the rest of the Indian film industry understand or misunderstand about this huge success Malayalam movies have made? What are they telling you? Tell us some juicy gossip.
I don't know a lot of juicy gossip, truthfully, but let me tell you, um, Malayalam cinema is now the holy grail, okay, of storytelling. Genuinely. You know, everybody understands that this is where the most groundbreaking storytelling is happening. And it's not just one type of storytelling, right? So the fact is that the Malayalam film industry can put out a Loka and a Echo in the same year, and do a Pon Man and do a Rekha Chitram and do a Thurudam. I mean, to me, it's like incredible. Just the range and the fact that, damn, they made Loka in 30 crores. I can't even get over that. Like, and neither can any of Bollywood, because that would literally be maybe the hero's salary on a Bollywood film. So for me, I I think Malayalam cinema is really peak storytelling, and everybody gets it.
Because that's huge applause. I think that's not enough for Malayalam cinema. Thank you. So I heard Karan Johar, saying the same thing about Loka, that, how are these guys doing it for 30 crores? So my question is, it's not just the audience who are understanding, other cinemas. I'm sure Bollywood is an industry. It's watching other industries closely. And Bollywood has such massive resources at their disposal, like 100 crores, 200 crores, it's nothing. But why are they so risk averse when it comes to scripting and thinking about cinema?
Rana Dagubati had said to me that there's too much money. So, too much money makes you risk averse, right? Because you have to recover that money. And maybe more limited budgets make you more inventive. You look at like Iranian cinema, you look at industries which are smaller in terms of budget, but are doing far more inventive work. And maybe he's right. Maybe just the money spoils you, you know? Or you use, like, let's say a film like Kalki, or Bahubali, which cost enormous amounts of money, RRR, which are very expensive movies, but you use the movie for the film. It's not being used for the actor's entourage or for buying press. It's being used to make the film better. So when you're using a big budget, it should be used to better the film, because everything succeeds if the film succeeds. And I don't know if enough people understand that in the Hindi film industry.
whoever said this lot of money, they should send some pocket change to us. Maybe in Malayalam, there are movie directors and producers. Maybe they can do a lot with that money because I think that matters a lot to Malayalam movie. Yeah, so, I also wanted to ask you about the lot of actors I've heard, they're talking about of this new clutch of Malayalam movies are releasing, aspire to make it to Mollywood. But until 5 years ago, that was unthinkable because even for us, we used to think about who would make it to Bollywood, and that's like a big deal. Now it looks like it's the other way around, right? Is that
Completely. I just think the only issue is, like I said, it's a damn hard language. Otherwise, everybody would learn Malayalam and be here. It's just a tough language, but I think they're all watching. They're all very respectful of the kind of work being done, of the also of the box office success, right? Because look, cinema is as much commerce as it is art. So you can't do great cinema that only you watch, right? So the fact that Malayalam cinema can make amazing movies that all of you go to watch, I mean, genuinely, it's also all of you. What an amazing audience you guys are. Genuinely, really. I always say this, that the buck stops with the audience. And if the audience demands better movies will be made. So I think that everybody across the country has a sense of how literate the audience here is, how tough the audience is, and how they will give a chance. So a film like Echo can find an audience, which is amazing. In the the fact is, in other places, films like that won't even be made because they're like, this will be okay for streaming, but not for theatrical. Because it's so hard to pull in an audience without a spectacle, without a star. But here, the audience goes and sees it, which is incredible.
so? Do you think a lot on how an industry evolves depends on you're saying the quality of the audience? So is it the case that maybe in Kerala or in some other places the audience is ahead of the industry, or their taste is evolved much faster than the industry?
I don't know if it's ahead of the industry, but it's definitely with the industry, right? So you're also not so starstruck that you won't see a mid budget or a small budget film. And the health of any industry depends on those films also running. You can't only have Lokas and Empurans. You need the smaller films as well. You need the family film, you need the romance, you need the murder mystery. I mean, my God, are we excited about Drishyam 3 or what? So you need that, right? And I think that the fact that the audience has made all of these films run is amazing.
And no insult to any industry, but sometimes we as audience still get surprised when we see this triangular love story, making a debut in Bollywood. But anyways, no discussion about any industry, especially Bollywood, is incomplete without talking about nepotism. That, yeah, that became a huge discussion in Bollywood, of course, after the Kangana Ranaut calling Karan out. Uh, but nepotism is not just limited to Bollywood. Like if you look at the Malayalam industry, most of these new clutch of stars that we have are all sons and daughters of big actors. Now Mohanlal's daughter is debuting in a new movie. Mammootty's son is one of the biggest stars now. Do you think nepotism is only about family backgrounds and access, or how much is it also about talent?
So, I had asked the same thing. Asked Vineet Srinivasan, okay, why does Hindi cinema get flack for this? And Vineet himself is a Nepo baby, right? I said, all your biggest stars are Nepo babies, Prithviraj, Dulkar, Fahad. But why does Hindi cinema get so much flack? And he said to me that if you're talented, it doesn't matter. Right? And that is the truth. So, do you not want a Ranbir Kapoor or a Alia to be actors?
Just because they happen to be from a big Bollywood family?
Yeah, of course not. because they're enormously talented. They're brilliant actors. The trouble is when it's the people who are not as talented who keep getting chances, which is what happens perhaps too much in the Hindi film industry. But here, all the Nepo babies are also bloody talented. So it's all good.
That's right. So I think there are specific cases, even in Bollywood, correct me if I'm wrong, that they got launched as a Nepo kid, but they didn't go anywhere because of lack of talent.
No, there's enough. There's ample examples. And the truth is that it's become much less. Uh, there is, at least for directors, it's a far more equal playing ground. You know, you're not just looking for directors from within the business. Uh, Karan Johar gets called out for nepotism all the time, but he's given chances to so many new directors. Eventually, who your father or mother is will not make you a star. And there's ample examples of that across industries. You've got to be good. And the public has to be interested in you. They have to love you. So maybe it's just, I think what riles everybody is that you get much more chances than the next amazingly talented person who's come from nowhere. You know, but now I feel like it's the business is too tough for people to take chances on people who don't deliver. So it's going to eventually, I hope, be weaned out much more.
But at least they get the first door open much more easily than others. That's all it is. Okay. And, we spoke about nepotism, we spoke about OTT. I think one important, another question that I want to ask you is about women in cinema. How do you see women's role in Indian cinema, in Bollywood, has evolved over the years?
You know, it's changed dramatically in many good ways. Because when I first started, which was early 90s, there were almost no women on set except for the heroine, dancers, maybe the heroine's mom. And that was it. Like you would have a set of 150, 200 crew, and there would be no female HODs, nobody, right? Now that has drastically changed, and actually, Hindi cinema is far ahead of all other film industries in terms of inclusivity. We have far more women working uh, far more women in positions of power as gatekeepers. Netflix is led by a woman, Monica Shergill. So it's a landscape that's changed dramatically. Are we anywhere near being equal? No. Now, despite all the progress we've made in the 30 years that I've been a journalist, it is nowhere close to being equal. The South industries, including Malayalam, actually, is very low on female HODs. I know this because I'm part of a report that we do called O Woman
I
Ya.
wanted to ask you about that. Yes,
Yeah.
please tell us about it.
So O Woman Ya is a report on gender equity in the entertainment industry. It's presented by Amazon Prime Video. Film Companion Studios produces it, and the research, all the numbers are done by Omax Media. And we're just going to be releasing the numbers for 2024. And frankly, the four South industries are way behind Hindi cinema when it comes to female HODs, women in positions of power. So for me, that dichotomy is hard to understand, that these are four such thriving ecosystems who are not doing well in terms of gender equation at all. So I feel you have to just keep talking about it. You have to keep hammering it. And this, the current lot of actors, at least in Hindi cinema, are very open about talking about gender parity, talking about the things that they want. They're not anymore, women were supposed to stay in a lane. Ye mat bolo, don't do this, don't do that, you can't say this. I think that is all gone. And for me, frankly, a real source of inspiration is what the Women in Cinema Collective did here. It was incredible, genuinely incredible. To stay that long and to pursue something for so long. And I feel everybody said, oh, this happens in the Malayalam film industry. The truth is, it happens everywhere. Only the Malayalam film industry pursued it, talked about it, and I hope there is action to fix it. You know,
Yeah. That's one of the moments in Malayalam cinema that kind of upended the movie industry. And it's great that these women have come forward. A lot of them lost their career, they lost a lot. They had to give a huge prize to do this, maybe for the women who come after them, who actresses who would come after them. But my question is, even in the context of Malayalam cinema, the characters of the movies have evolved and the space that women have on screen. I mean, they're more assertive women, women who can, who have a lot of agency on their own body, on their choices, and who are guilt free when they want to enjoy life. All of that is happening on screen, but off screen, it's still a different story everywhere. How would a film critic like you or people in the movie industry kind of understand this dichotomy?
truthfully, I don't know enough to speak about it in an informed way. But all I can say is, you guys made a female superhero movie last year called Loka, and that made 300 crores, and that has not happened anywhere else in this country. Okay. So, for me, that is so incredible that you make a female led film that delivers amazing business, right? So, people went to see it. People did not say, oh, this is a woman's picture, right? They didn't do that. They went and they saw Kalyani kick ass, and she was so good. And to me, that's a sign that the fabric of society is also changing.
Yeah, I think it's a two-way around, right? What the cinema gives, what sometimes, I mean, that's an ongoing debate whether, the chicken,
Chicken and egg.
That's
Yeah.
the chicken and egg debate. We are very close to opening the questions to audience. I'm sure there's a lot coming. But before that, I want to ask a quick question to the audience so that maybe Anupama will have an idea. Is there anybody out here who doesn't watch Bollywood movies? Is there anybody out here? No one. But yeah, isn't it amazing? But I think maybe 10 or 15 years ago, if you had asked this question, because I know people in my own family, among my friends, they only watch Malayalam movies. But I think the way Bollywood and also other language cinemas have penetrated into Malayalam cinema, it's not just that we enjoy and we are very proud of Malayalam cinema, but we are as much open to understanding other language cinemas. So on that note, I want to open the questions and please tell your name and then if you can ask a question. Can we have a mic, please?
Hello. Hi, ma'am. My name is Gio. Thank you for being here at KLF. Ma'am, the comment box of most of the film reviews are often sites of warfare, filled with resentment, rage, accusations, bitterness. Amidst all this, you remain so graceful, kind, and so full of joy. Like, I mean, ma'am, I really like to know, the behind scenes of, what does it mean to be Anupama Chopra?
That's a great question.
Because it's warfare, they have a war correspondent moderating. Look, I'm not going to lie, it's much harder, much harder. Also, because I think I'm bewildered by it. Finally, a film review is just, it's one person's opinion. So it shouldn't be this fraught, it shouldn't be this contentious or dark. People come after you, they threaten your children. It's like, how did we get here? I'm just telling you how I felt about a film, you know? But I'm also very aware of the fact that it's such a privilege to have the job that I have, to do something I truly love, to be in a theater every other day and to watch a movie, whether it's good or bad, just gives me so much happiness. To talk to artists from across the country and across the world who make movies gives me so much joy that I feel like you just have to learn to ignore the dark side, right? latest policy is post and ghost. So as long as you don't read the comments, they can't get to you.
You know, we have over these days, we have discussed how writers, historians are all attacked, you know, for exercising their freedom of speech. But to know that even movie critics are not spared says a lot about the times that we live, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, hello, ma'am. It's Praful here. As ma'am, my question is nowadays a lot many remake movies are made in the Bollywood from the regional cinema. So when you are writing a review for one such movie, do you do a comparison between the movies or do you consider it as an independent movies? Do the rules of review changes for you? And because the audience and the setting and the movie style also changes, so does it any changes for you? Or you also take it as any other independent movie? Thanks.
You know, this is a big dilemma I have. Like, should you not watch the original and just see this as an independent movie? But so far, I can't do that. I always go back and watch the original because I want to see what the remake brings to it. Like Dhadak 2 was a remake of Mari Selvaraj's Perumal. Uh, but what Shazia did with Dhadak was bring the woman's character to the front lines. So it was and if I did not see the original, if I didn't see Mari's film, I wouldn't have realized that what she did was so different from the original. So I know it's not, it's, again, it's a difficult one because also if it's a suspense film, I mean, of course, I'm going to see Drishyam 3 the day it releases, and then I'll have to go see the Ajay Devgan version, but I'll already know what happens. So does that kill the suspense? Of course it does, right? So it's a bit of a conundrum, and I'm not sure what the right way is, but so far I always go back to the original.
Anupama, wanted to know your views on regulation, censorship, in a broader sense, in terms of improving the lot of behind the camera personnel on the one hand, or in terms of curbing violence or excessive violence, sex, and whatever else, vulgarity and the like. What are the pros and cons in your view?
So, in terms of censorship, look, ideally, if we lived in an ideal world, which we don't at all, there shouldn't have to be censorship. What it should be is a recommendation that this should be seen by adults. This should be seen by teenagers. This is a universal film that can go everywhere. But the truth is, we're not in an ideal world. And it's, again, a very, very thorny area of in a country like ours where there is so much diversity, so much sort of, illiteracy, there's so many challenges. Do we need to have more regulated censorship so that it allows people to access material in a more sort of, in a way that's comfortable for them, right? I think it's a question that is endless, but we do need to have perhaps broader laws and broader thinking, I think, because I'm not sure when I see a film and a character is smoking and there's a thing on the side that says, smoking is injurious to health. If I'm a smoker, is it really I'm going to say, oh, I just saw that, I'm going to stop smoking. But what I'm doing is essentially, messing up the frame that the director had in his or her mind. So for me, things like that feel just redundant. It doesn't make sense to be doing that. In terms of your second question of how do they kind of regulate, look, the truth is it's a private industry, right? And every producer has to decide what the pay scale is and who gets paid what. And at least in the Hindi film industry, for last 5-7 years, there's been a lot of conversation about how writers need to get paid much more, which is fabulous. How technicians and like DOPs, editors, production designers, all need to be paid much more because it cannot be that the film actor, the hero, gets 40 crores and everybody else gets a pittance. That is very uneven. And sure, the film actor is the face of the film and carries the load, but if you don't pay your craftspeople well enough, and especially if you don't feed them well, you're not going to have a very good film. But you can't regulate this because it is private, and each producer has to decide for themselves.
Hi, ma'am. I was actually going to ask you exactly the same point that you mentioned just now. The money is getting concentrated on the hands of a few. So it actually puts the burden of the success of the film also on the shoulders of the actors sometimes, especially the lead actors. Shouldn't the fame, the credit, the popularity, everything, even the money, get distributed to other sectors? And can that change, or can't that change start from people like you? Like when you interview for a movie, you can invite the cinematographer, the editor, or the music director,
We
the
do.
background score.
We do actually, and thank you for that question. But if you look at the roundtables we've done in the Hollywood Reporter India, we are the only platform that does a technicians roundtable. We're the only platform that did a music roundtable. And look, as much as I can, we are always talking about people behind the screens because they have to be empowered. They need to be celebrated. They need to be stars in their own right. So actually, my colleague Sneha Menon Desai did the technicians roundtable, which had a casting director, which had a DOP, which had an editor, which had a stylist. And I think you're absolutely right. There needs to be much, much more um, showcasing of all the crafts. You know, I would love to, honestly, if I could bring together a roundtable more often. The truth is, roundtables are damn expensive. So fundamentally, it all comes down to budgets and how much we can afford. And we can't afford to do it month on month.
Roundtables happen like once in a year, mostly end of the year. So maybe
So-
for each movie, if you can bring them. So
If somebody would pay for it. So we need a brand. If there are any marketing heads here,
sure,
that would be
it's up to-
amazing.
hopefully.
Yes, always.
Hi, ma'am. So I'm sure you're pretty familiar with Letterbox. So I'm taking that role here in KLF, and I'd love to ask you, what are your 4 favorite movies?
Wow. You know, so that's a really tough one because favorite movies keep changing depending on your mood and the period of life you're in. Um, so it can't be like in stone 4 favorite, like these are my top 4, but these are 4 that will probably always remain favorites. So Sholay, of course. Love, love, love Sholay from the bottom of my heart. Kumbalangi Nights is just one of my absolute favorites. It's just such a moving, such a beautiful film. Big fan of Lagan. I think what Amir and Ashutosh did with that film was just tremendous. And truthfully, my favorite movie of last year was Loka. it was the best experience I had in a theater. I saw it on the Saturday. It released the first Saturday, and we were just sitting in a theater in Mumbai, pretty packed hall, screaming. Okay, in that interval block when they reveal who she is, we were all just like, "Oh my god!" And we were it. You know, to have that experience with strangers and cheer together for such a kick-ass vampire is a very, very unique experience, and I loved it.
In here, yes.
Hello, ma'am. I'm Anuja George, a film studies research scholar from Calcutta University. I have read your book, Freeze the Frame, a good collection of interviews. My question is, there is a big urban belt of Calcutta who loves Karan Johar movies, especially 90s kid, my sister and everything, from this Kuch Kuch Hota Hai belt. Nowadays, we are not seeing that type of romantic movies. So what is your take on this Karan Johar movies? I know you share a good relationship with him, good friendship. I have seen the interviews. You met his father in the other studio when that Dharma Productions, everything I read. And I have heard that Kabhi Kushi Kabhi Gum Part 2 is coming from this tabloid news. Is it true? Do you have any idea? And what is your take on this Khans, Shah Rukh Khan, Amir Khan, Salman Khans? All these,
There's a lot of questions.
there are a lot of questions. I would like to meet you in person. Okay.
We'll try to answer
Yeah.
the first two.
So listen, like your sister, I love Karan Johar movies.
Yes, ma'am.
I think they, people think that critics are just, please sit, ma'am,
Okay,
please.
thank you.
Critics are like curmudgeons, like we don't like films, we just, I don't know, like, Hindi mein kuda hua bolte hain, curdle, like nasty. We're not. The reason you start going to a movie is for pleasure. When we
Yes.
were children, we went to films for pleasure. Nobody went because it was great education or great politics or great anything else. You went for fun. And I think Karan Johar makes movies that provide pleasure.
Yes, very true. The other day I discussed it with my sister.
Exactly.
Yes.
So now
We get a
Look-
pleasure after seeing.
look at Rocky or Rani.
Yes.
How cool was Rocky Randhawa, man? I loved Rocky Randhawa. And the truth is, with that movie, he also educated us about cancel culture and how we need to be more compassionate and more empathetic towards each other. So I think that Karan needs to make more movies and
Yes.
make them more often. And I have said to him that please continue with songs and dances and beautiful people in beautiful clothes because God
Beautiful
knows
locations too.
we all need that, right?
Yes.
We all need beauty as well. I think that there is a place for all. So my submission is that everyone's aesthetic palette should have all kinds of movies, right? So you should see Rocky or Rani, but you should also see Loka and Homebound and Ponman. And so you should not be stuck with just one kind of film because that's how you enhance your own movie taste buds. And he makes amazing films. And I think it's a real tragedy that people are not into song and dance, at least in Hindi cinema. Now they're more and more feeling ki it's all song
Yeah,
background
bygone.
montage. Yeah. I'm like, please, can people sing again? Because I think it's lovely.
Yes.
I just wanted to ask you about the recent change in trends in the National Award, particularly in the Best Actor session, and what is your take on it as a film critic?
So, look, the truth is that I have 1 minute, 25 seconds left, and I can't really comment since my husband won a national award. So, it would be a conflict of interest. So, it's better if I stay out of this one. Okay, now we have 1 minute 12. Yes.
Hello, ma'am. Big fan of your interview. Myself, Hiran. You are the only person who can bring a question like 6 Vanity Van question in an actors roundtable. So my question to you is, during the Anchors Roundtable with Bharat Raj Angan, you asked that there are many death threats to you and to your family while interviewing and reviewing a film. So over more than 25 years, would you still feel the same way while interviewing or reviewing a film? Or how do you manage it? Or would you held back? the questions?
ചെറുതാക്കിക്കോളൂ ട്ടോ നമുക്ക് സമയമില്ലാത്തതുകൊണ്ടാണ്
So
We'll
I'll,
answer
I'll
that.
just say that I feel the same joy when I go to see a film, and I feel the same curiosity when I go to interview somebody. The landscape has changed massively. The industries have all changed. The actors have changed. I am now doing interviews with the children of the people I started out interviewing in the 1990s. But my love for the movies has not changed. It's only become more. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I think we have time for one more question. Yes. They said we can take an extra
okay?
question. Yes.
Actually, I want to ask why there is a misrepresentation till date in Bollywood, like the inauthentic portrayal of our Malayali characters in
It's-
general.
Sorry, did you say it's
Why there is a misrepresentation or inauthentic portrayal of Malayali characters in Bollywood till date, with the name having Tekapatta Sundari Damodaran Pilla? Nobody is having the name here. You could ask, there is no Tekapatta Sundari Damodaran Pillai here, wearing in like excessive amount of flowers, jasmine flowers, climbing the coconut trees.
Answer that question.
So why it's intentional, ignoring the how progressive my state is. Or one more thing, like if the it's as you said, like my language is beautiful, but it's very hard. If there any difficulty to pronounce my language, they could easily hire cast actors from Malayalam industry as well. Okay, so yeah, just
Absolutely.
Okay.
Listen, I'm agreeing with you. The truth is that because traditionally, and guys, I'm not at all, first of all, apologies for all misrepresentation of Malayali characters. I'm profusely apologetic. The truth is, and I'm not defending, but historically, Hindi cinemas had to appeal to the broadest possible audience and has largely dabbled in stereotypes. So it's not just Malayalis. At one point, I know, did you guys see Ravan, Shah Rukh's film? It was South Indian. Nobody even, like, what does South Indian mean, right? So everything south of the Vindhyas was South Indian. And it's not just stereotypes about states or identities, it's stereotypes about women, it's stereotypes about queer people, it's stereotypes about everyone. And that doesn't make it okay. But it's just, and you're absolutely right, in 2025, there is no excuse for stereotyping.
exactly, ma'am.
And we need to do better. And all I can do is say, I'm sorry.
No, because yesterday Gautam Vasudev Menon sir was here, who is like Tamil director. He just casted like Jessie, like in Vinay Tandivirvai, so beautifully. That's Jessie from Kerala. So like, when it comes to Bollywood, it's entirely like we can't accept that kind of characters. Like till date, like we have so much of exposure.
I agree. You know, casting, I'll say, is also a question of the truth is money, right? And who brings in what box office. So casting is, you can't dictate casting. Because again, like I said, it's private. You know, somebody who's casting a movie is putting in his or her own money and will cast whoever they think serves both the film and their financial P&L. Because a film has to make money for that person to make another film. You know, so casting is very, very tricky. But can we do better? Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much, guys, for these wonderful questions. And Anupama, this always happens at KLF. The audience asks much better questions than the moderator. It is a thing about KLF. And this talks a lot about how intelligent our audience is. But you made our day. Thank you so much. We would love you to keep you coming back to KLF.
I would love to come back. I love Kerala. I love beetroot pachadi. So I would be so happy to come back. And thank you for your lovely questions. I know you do more serious things, but for
This
you,
is very much serious business, isn't it?
no, thank you, Anjana. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for
Thank
being
you,
here.
guys. Thank
Give her
you.
a big hand, and please do pick up this copy of the book. It's available in the bookstore.